Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This was lit entirely from the candles in the scene. No flash, no LEDs, just candlelight. I've used a few tricks and techniques to enhance the picture, mostly in the camera. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is what I've got set up so far. This is actually an old palette, and I'm going to use this as the base for the picture. I've also set a tripod at the front there, so I can place my camera relatively close to the subject. You don't need a great deal of space for this, and you definitely don't need any specialist lighting, just some candles. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is actually build my set. So I've got a few items here, which I'm just going to place on the table. And the idea of this is that I'm trying to build a bit of depth into the set so that I can split the focus. You'll see what I mean as we carry on. So I've got a few more things to add. And now I can start adding the candles. So I'm going to place one about here somewhere. Another one on the back here. Another one about here. So this is the basis of the set. So the next thing to do would be to set up the camera. So for the camera I'm using this medium format camera with a 45mm lens on the front of it. So in terms of angle of view, something like a 28mm on a full frame format will give you the same or similar angle of view. So it's quite a wide angle. Okay, so this camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to follow along and see the results as I get them. I'll pop this on the top of that tripod that I placed earlier. There we are. And with that, I'll turn the camera on. There we are. And now you can see all the settings that I have on the camera repeated in the software here. So the camera is in full manual mode. At the moment it has a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second, ISO 100 and an aperture of 2.8, which is wide open for this particular lens. So the next thing to do would be to just take a test shot just with the house lights in here. So what I'm going to do is just roughly focus up the camera. So just looking down the viewfinder, I'll just turn the lens and we'll get a focus about there somewhere, I think. There we are. So now I'll just grab an image and we'll see what we get. Okay, so we can see from this that for a test image it's not bad. The colour balance is a bit off maybe. You can see all the background because at the moment I haven't actually put anything behind the subject. So I need to address that. I'll just zoom all the way in and we'll check the focus. Yeah, and that's not too bad. The other thing I think I might change is the height of the camera. I think if I elevate the camera slightly, I'll get a better image. So I can just wind that up on the center column of the tripod here. There we are, about there somewhere I think. So the other thing I wanted to do was just address the background. So for that I'm going to use this C-stand and some black mount board. So I just place this on the stand like that. Now I just put that up in the air a bit. This way a little, something like that. Okay, I'll just grab that again and we'll see what it looks like now. Yes, I think it's been improved by lifting the camera up. So this is what we had before. This is what I've got now. The background's not quite in the right place yet, as you can see, but it's getting there. So there's a bit of fine tuning to do. So I'll just adjust the background and maybe one or two items on here. I just want to bring that book around a bit. Something like that. There we are. I can bring this in a bit closer. Okay, and grab that again. Yes, that's looking better. So I think now is time to start lighting the candles. There we go. So they're all lit now. And now we can have a go at trying to find an exposure with just the candlelight. So if I just leave everything as it is, including having the house lights on, and I grab an image now, we'll get a lot of contamination, obviously, from the house lights. And you can see that we're not getting too much of an effect there. So the house lights are going to need to go out. There we are. Now I still have some video lights on, which I'll need to take out completely when we come to do the proper pictures. But it should be okay for doing some tests. So let me just grab an image now. We'll see what we get. And there, you can see that we're actually getting a reasonable image with those candles. It's surprising just how much light you get out of these candles. So, just at these settings, it could do to be a bit brighter, I think. So I'll adjust the shutter speed from a 30th to a 15th. That'll give me another stop. There, that's okay. Got to be careful that you don't actually burn out the bright parts. But the image is still a little flat. I want to give it more depth. So what I'm going to do is add another candle, but I'm going to put this candle right at the very front, like that. Now that will be out of focus, but that's the idea, that's what I want. So let's just grab that and see what difference it makes. Yeah, that's okay. I think I need a little bit of adjustment. I think I'd just like to turn around this base and maybe just adjust the distance that it is. Let's grab that again and see what we get now. Yeah, that's getting there, I think, but it is a little bland. Now, one of the things that you can do to enhance this sort of picture when you've got highlights like this is to create a starburst. And you can do that by using the aperture blades within the lens. As it is at the moment, the lens is wide open at 2.8. But if I shut that down, so if I go from 2.8 to f11, that's a 4-stop change, so I'll need to get 4 stops of light from somewhere. So the easiest way to do that is just to adjust the ISO. So instead of it being 100, 200 would be 1 stop, 400 would be 2 stops, 800 would be 3 stops, 1600 would be 4 stops. Let's just grab that. There, now the first thing that you can see as a difference between those two is that now we have much more definition in the actual flame. And we're starting to get a starburst effect around each candle. This is what we had before. This is what I've got now. So to make that starburst effect even more prominent, what I'm going to do is change the aperture again from f11, and I'm going to take that all the way to f22. And now to compensate for that, I'm going to change the shutter speed. So from a 15th to a half. I'll just grab that again. There we are. And now you've got really prominent starbursts on each candle. So this was at 2.8, this was at f11, and this is at f22. Okay, I need to turn out my video light to get a proper image. So I'm now in a completely dark room, apart from the light from the candles and a little bit of light from this monitor. So let's just grab that again and see what it looks like now. There, you should be able to see that it's cleaned up the background considerably. This is what we had before. This is what I've got now. So in terms of the actual exposure, I think that's pretty good. So now I can turn the lights back on and we can dispense with the candles. There we go. Okay, so this is the image we've got. So the next thing I want to do before I export this into Photoshop is just do some adjustments to the image within Capture One. So I'll bring up the adjustment page here. Now the first thing I want to do is just calm down these highlights. So I'm going to go for the highlight here and just take that down a little, like so. There we are. And I might just bring up the shadow detail a little bit and just change the clarity. There we are. Something like that. Now the advantage of doing this in Capture One or whatever software you use at this stage is that it will be affecting the raw file. So you'll have the full dynamic range of that file to play with. Okay, so having done all those changes, what I'll do now is just export this straight into Photoshop to do the bare minimum of post-production. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that I captured earlier. So the first thing I want to do is just to make a copy of this file so I can edit the copy and leave the camera original alone. Now, the way I prefer to do that is just to go onto the background layer here, right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call this candle. There we are. So now Photoshop has made me a new file so I can close down the camera original. I've always got that one to go back to. This is what I'll be editing. Now because I've done a lot of the grading in Capture One before exporting the image, there is literally very little to do within Photoshop. I think one of the things I'll do is select a crop. Now I'm going to use this for video, so I'm using a specific ratio of 16:9, and I think it's possibly a little tight at the top here, so I'll just bring it down in the frame a little. There we are. I'll just click on OK. And there we have it. So by closing down the aperture, I've been able to create a starburst effect on each candle. There are 5 points on this, as there are 5 leaves in the aperture on the lens I used. And I think overall that's worked rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.